Good morning, everybody. Yes, it is still morning for the next 3 minutes. Uh, I just wanted to let you know that we'll be starting right at 12 o'clock. And if you are on there now, please look at the screen, go to signin.nmdelt.org. And just fill out the form so that we know you're here. And then also, if you wouldn't mind putting your name and your program or your location in the chat on the right, that would be wonderful so we know who's here with us. Thank you. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. Okay, good afternoon now, and welcome to the third annual New Mexico Delt Virtual Conference. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are presenting Google Tools for Administrators today, being presented by Jamie Trujillo. My name is Kristen Waring, and I will be moderating this webinar for you today. So some of you have already signed in. I'm going to ask that you hold off until the end of the session now if you want to go to sign in, and I will post the link at the end at signin.nmdelt.org so you get credit for being here. This will verify your attendance. I'd also like for you to go to the chat on the right side of your screen if you haven't already and just enter your name and location or program so that we know who's with us and joining us on this wonderful day. Also, if you have any questions for Jamie as we go along, go ahead and type them in the chat box. I will be filling her in on questions towards the end of the presentation, and we'll get some answers for you then. And if you're watching this, if you are not watching this live today, if you're watching the recording, you can go ahead and disregard this message. So now I am going to turn my mic over to Jamie Trujillo.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you for that introduction. Welcome, everyone, to Google Tools for Administrators. As Kristen said, my name is Jamie Trujillo, and I will be presenting today's webinar. So as we get started, I'm just going to start with a really quick chat question here. What Google tools do you use now? And this could be any Google tool. And we, of course, are speaking from the point of view of an administrator. So do you use Gmail? Do you use Google Docs or Sheets? Do you use Forms or Classroom? Any of that? I'm just curious to see what you use now. And I know there's a bit of a delay, so I'll give everybody a few seconds to answer. You could just really quickly chat out one or so tools that you use.
So some tools could be Forms, it looks like. And we have Google Classroom on there.
Awesome. And those are both two things that I'm going to be covering today. I'm actually very excited to be talking about both of them because it's relatively new to be using some of these tools. And so I, again, want to talk about how, as an administrator, you can use these for your program and for program improvement. So the first tool that I'm going to be talking about is Google Hangouts and Google Meet. These are communication tools. So you can use Hangouts first, and I know this is not really going in order of my slide, but if you wanted to just chat in Google Hangouts, you can do that directly from Gmail. I'm sure you've noticed that on the lower left, you have all of your contacts that you've chatted with. You can create a chat window, and you can just send instant messages, which can be very useful if you just need a quick answer. You can also schedule team meetings on Hangouts and Meet, whether it is a scheduled meeting or an impromptu meeting, and I'm going to show you how to do both of those. You can also schedule one-on-one meetings. As an administrator, one thing that I do is I will go to each site. We have several sites, and so I am at a different site every day. And I will try to communicate with each of my staff multiple times a week. Sometimes my schedule can be a little bit off. So if I have to be off-site for a meeting or a training, it's still possible for me to have a check-in with my staff virtually or at a distance. So Hangouts and Meet is really useful for those types of things. And I'm going to show you some screenshots here real quickly, and then I'm going to take you into Hangouts to show you how to initiate those things. To initiate a video chat, you would go to hangouts.google.com, and you'll see that you have three options: video call, phone call, and messages. Now, if you want to chat, you could just click on the message icon, and then you can choose who to message. It could be a single person, or it could be a group message. If you want to do a video call, you just click on that, and what's going to happen is it is going to take you to the Meet page. You can start a new meeting, or if you want to participate in a meeting, you can use a meeting code. What's really great about Hangouts Meet is that it can be scheduled right from Google Calendar. So if you want to invite people for a Hangout meeting, you just put in conferencing, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. You put in conferencing on your event, and it will automatically generate a meeting code. And then once people receive that invite, it will be in their calendar. They do not have to search their emails for a code. They don't have to try to write it down anywhere. It's right in calendar. They click on it and they can join the meeting, which is really useful. So I'm going to escape out of my presentation really quickly, and I'm going to show you this live. So here is my Hangouts page. And here's all my chats. Now, if I want to start a video call, I'm going to click there like I did, and here is my Google Meet. So if I wanted to start a new meeting, I would just click right here on Start a New Meeting, and it's going to open up a new window, and you can see me, hi, and I can turn off my camera if I want to, or you can keep your camera on. that is another useful feature if people feel a little disconnected by virtual meetings. You can keep your webcam on. So whenever it's ready, you'll see that there's login information there. There's not just a link, but there's a dial-in option, which is something that Hangouts does not have. Google Meet allows you to dial in. So if you happen to be somewhere that does not have a lot of really good Wi-Fi or internet connectivity or data connectivity, you can participate over the phone. And being that New Mexico has so many rural areas, it's very useful. For NM Delt, we've had a lot of times where several of our members have had to get in on the call while driving, and it's much easier to be on when you call in. So it really works very similarly to regular Hangouts in every other respect. I'm just going to X out of this tab here, and I'm going to show you how to click on. So here I'm going to click on Kristen's icon, and then I'm going to send her a video call. Now, right now, I'm going to do that. I'm going to X out of that real quick. But you saw it called her. Now, she could answer, or maybe she's not available. If she's not able to answer, it'll tell her that she missed a call. Like you can see at the bottom, it says you've missed a call. So that's definitely useful for impromptu calls. So I'm going to go back over to my presentation here. And I apologize. I'm going to get out of my presentation. The one thing that I was going to show you that I hadn't yet was going to calendar to schedule a meet. So if I wanted to add an event, say on the 16th, I can just hit more options. It allows me to put in my meeting information. I can set the day. If it's not all day, I can uncheck all day, and I can put in my times, my start time and end times. If there is an actual location for the meeting, you can put that. But obviously, if it's going to be a Google Meet, you can see here it says Add Conferencing. If you click there, you can choose Hangouts Meet, and it will automatically set up the meeting details for you. So here is all of that. When, like I said, when your guests receive that invite, it will have all of this information for them. And once they go into their calendar, they can see it again. So that is really, really useful for those types of meetings. Okay, so now I am going to go back to my presentation, and I'm going to talk about the next tool, which is Google Drive. Google Drive, of course, many of you know, works as a storage system or area in the cloud. So it is like a virtual flash drive. Definitely the biggest advantage to having Google Drive is that you don't have to worry about hardware breaking. You don't have to worry about your flash drive breaking or getting lost, or even just forgetting it at home when you happen to show up at work on Monday. You can have everything stored in the drive, and it is very easily shared with other people. And that's what makes Google Drive so useful. You can instantly share files with your staff or with other colleagues throughout the state. You can also choose how files are shared. If you want them to be shared via view only, and you don't want people to be able to edit what you share, that is an option. If you want to give people edit access, then you can do that as well. You can choose if you want a group to be able to view an entire folder, or you can choose for certain people to be shared within subfolders within a folder. You do not have to always share an entire folder. So this can also be a very secure way to share files. It's also a great way to keep records. Like I said, it is secure. Google for G Suite for Education is very secure. So if you use your NM Delta account to use Google Drive, for example, if you have your college email and your only Gmail is your NM Delta account, that is a Google or G Suite for Education account, and so it is very secure. And I'm going to show you a little bit more with record keeping here in a second. But the last thing I want to touch on is these dynamic reports. Now, this is something that's relatively new to me, but it's also very exciting. If you were to want to create, whether it's a grant report or a community flyer or even a report to, say, a board of directors, you can create a report that has live links to different files within Google Drive. So for example, if you had a spreadsheet or a chart or a diagram that might be difficult to print or be very large, and you don't want to have to print all of those, you would give them this report via Google Drive or just send it as a link, and then they would be able to click on those different parts of the report, and it will take them to further information. So it is a great way to put a lot of information in a very small space. And I'm actually very excited to try to use this in the coming months. I have a couple of projects that I'll be using for this. So actually I'm gonna X out of here real quick again, and I'm gonna go to my Google Drive so I can show you a couple of things here. What's really great about Google Drive is it doesn't just work with Google compatible pieces such as docs or sheets or slides. It also works with Microsoft. So for example, if I wanted to store something in Google Drive, I'm just pulling this up as an example. This is my letterhead. So this is the Albuquerque Adult Learning Center letterhead. It is on a Word document. This is not a Google Doc. However, I want to just store it. So what I would do is I would go over here to my flash drive, and I would find my file. Here's my letterhead. And I could just drag and drop it right into Google Drive. And it is going to upload. And it only takes a few seconds for it to upload. And then if I scroll down, there it is, right there. There's my letterhead. Now you'll notice that it has a blue square icon with a white W. That lets me know that it is still in Word format. If you look at the files above it, these are docs. These are Google Docs. So if I were to double click on that letterhead, it's going to show me kind of a grayed out background, and I cannot edit this, but I can print and I can download it. So if I just wanted to save it because I knew that I was going to have to go somewhere where I didn't have my computer, but I did have a different computer to access this, I would have access. I would not lose access to this file. Now, one thing that's really useful about Google Drive is that you can convert a Word document into a Google Doc. So if I were to right-click this, I could open it with Google Docs, and it will convert it to a Google Doc, and then I can edit it straight from there. So say I need to write a letter and I do not have access to Microsoft Office. Some computers do not have it anymore. A lot of computers don't come with Microsoft Office. So I could just convert it, and you can see that nothing got lost in formatting. Sometimes, especially with images, things can get lost in formatting. So you want to be careful with that. Just check it, make sure that you didn't lose anything. And then I can edit right from here, and I can change my font. I can do whatever I want to with it. And those changes will be automatically saved every 3 seconds. That's the other great thing about Google Drive is you do not have to try to remember to save. It auto-saves. Now, once I get out of this file, if I were to refresh my page, I now have a copy of my letterhead as a Google Doc. So now you can see the icon. It has the 3 white lines. That is a Google Doc, and I have it, and I can edit it from there. So Drive is just a very, very useful tool, especially if you're not trying to keep track of flash drives and you want a lot more flexibility there and sharing capabilities. The other thing that my boss and I use Drive for is things like our mid-year reports or our annual reports. We will upload them to Google Drive as a Google Doc. We will convert it to a Google Doc. We will simultaneously edit the form. And then when we're done with it, we will re-download it because see here, I'm going to bring back up that letterhead again. If I wanted to download it as a Word document, I would hit File, Download As, and I can download it as a Microsoft Word document. What is also very useful is I can download it as a PDF document. If I wanted to just do that right away, I can do that. Now for us, if it was a report, we'd want to make sure that the formatting was still good, and we would download it as Word, fix any little formatting errors that happen with translation, and then resave it as a PDF. But for other things like this, that would not be necessary. So that also is really great when you're trying to simultaneously edit. Okay, so The next thing I'm going to go to, because I've been talking about this a little bit, but they definitely deserve their own section here, are Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. Now, I put these together because they are very similar to Microsoft Office. They all have similarities. For example, Docs is similar to Microsoft Word. You saw how I was able to convert between formats there. Google Docs are very useful for meeting agendas or meeting notes, for grant reports, like I already mentioned. And what's great is if you have a large meeting, maybe a meeting that's running a long time, you can give multiple people access to the notes, and multiple people can take notes so that nothing is missed. That can get a little confusing when you're just looking at it, but if people are typing in different parts of the document, it's not too bad. Google Sheets is very similar to Microsoft Excel. And just like Docs, it can convert seamlessly between Excel and Sheets. And it has pretty much the same formulas. There are a few things, it's a little bit more limited than Microsoft Excel, but for almost everything that you will need to use it for, chances are you can use Sheets for that. Very useful for performance reports. I will run a LACES report for all of my staff every 6 weeks. And so I will export the data. And then you can also upload CSVs, because I know that LACES downloads as a CSV. You can upload the CSV to your drive, just like I did with that Google Doc, and you can convert it to Sheets and work with it there. It's very useful for appointment schedules. For our students, when they come in to register, they get an appointment for an orientation. And we keep our orientation schedule on Google Drive so that every staff member has access to these schedules at all times. We operate out of several different sites throughout the city, and sometimes a student might walk into a classroom with any given teacher and say, I missed my appointment, or I forgot when my appointment is. Can you please help me out? And that teacher can go into the orientation schedule, look up that student, and let them know when they are scheduled, or if they've missed the appointment, they can give them the information to reschedule. And staff data as well, not just student data, but staff data can also be stored on Google Sheets, such as hire dates or birth dates or any other data that you need to keep on your staff. You can definitely keep that in Google Drive in Sheets. Google Slides is very similar to PowerPoint. So as an administrator, if you provide any trainings for your staff, Slides is very, very useful. You can create a presentation just like the presentation that I made right now. You can provide webinars to your staff if there's a lot of remote staff that you have, and you can provide staff trainings, whether it is in person or virtual. Google Slides is very easy to manipulate. It saves automatically, just like the other two. And it is really handy to have those things available. I have an orientation PowerPoint that I give to our students. If I cannot make an orientation and I have to have a staff member cover the orientation, just like they had to do for me today, they have access to that Google Slides and they can use it. It's also mobile friendly. So if you are able to plug in your mobile device to a projector, you can use Google Sheets. It's very, very easy to go between slides on your mobile device. And like with slides, all of these Google tools are mobile friendly. Now, this next one I'm going to talk about, Google Classroom, is still kind of new to me as an administrator. But with participation in the C3 initiative, we have seen how staff professional development and continuing education can be done through this learning management system. And it's very exciting to see this. It's really, really great. So Classroom can be useful for things like team projects as well. You know, the C3 initiative is really big. Our staff are having to go through a lot of different classrooms, and it doesn't even have to be that intensive. It can be something like planning for a curriculum design. Say you want to make sure that your staff is creating a curriculum that is brain-based, and you want to give them the background on brain-based learning, and then you want them to be able to create a lesson plan and eventually turn that into curriculum. All of that can be done on Google Classroom. What's really great about Google Classroom is that you can set due dates, and that makes your staff accountable. That's one thing that is very important to me as an administrator, is making sure that my staff are doing what they say they're going to do in the time frame that they are given. So putting all of that into Classroom and organizing it helps you as an administrator make sure that your staff are also meeting their deadlines, as well as being able to provide feedback as you go along. You can also do event planning on Classroom. For example, we have our graduation coming up on June 1st. We have certain things that need to be done before graduation. We can set different tasks as assignments. We can set different people to be assigned to these tasks. So you can have a whole classroom of your staff in that classroom, but you can assign something to just one staff member or two staff members. It does not have to be assigned to everyone. So that's really great, because then everybody has their assigned tasks and you can keep track of who is completing what. I already touched on the continuing education, the C3 initiative being a big example of that. It could be something very big. And, we are starting with digital badging. That's something that you can try to work into your staff's continuing education. And again, really just the big part of that is being able to manage those deadlines. It's really useful to be able to keep track of that, especially because, let's face it, as directors, we are incredibly busy, and it is not always easy to keep track of who is supposed to be doing what by what date. So once again, I'm just going to X out really quickly, and I'm going to go to Classroom. And, I obviously am an instructor in a lot of things, and you can have really as many classes as you need to. And you sometimes can be invited by other teachers to either be an instructor or a student in a class. What you would do, and this is classroom.google.com, you would go here to create class. See, I'm an instructor, so I can either join a class as a student or I can create a class as an instructor. And you can name it however you want. Once you create it, you'll be able to create a shell with classwork, with due dates. You can create announcements and again, assignments. You can create questions for people to answer. And it's really up to you how involved you want your staff to be in Classroom. If you have a lot of part-time staff that you don't get to see very often, if you have even full-time staff that work remotely most of the week, this is a really great way to stay connected as well. And the last piece that I want to talk about in the last 5 minutes or so that I have is Google Forms. I have to say, Google Forms has got to be my favorite Google tool. I love data, and Google Forms is a great way to gather that data. A lot of times we think about how to use Google Forms for students, but maybe not so much so for your staff and for program development. These are just a few ways that you can use forms for your students and your staff. Student surveys, like end of term surveys. Our term is 6 weeks long. So at the end of every term, we have students complete a survey. This used to be a paper survey. And we found that I think students were a little afraid that their teachers would recognize their handwriting, especially if they had any kind of criticism of the instructor. So surveys or Google Forms will allow you to remain anonymous. These are typed answers, so it is easy to be honest. You also don't have to worry about handwriting issues. You can read these. Any kind of staff orders or requests, things like supply orders or time off requests. Those can be done on Google Forms, and you can make that, it's very easy to keep track of what you've ordered, what you've approved, things like that. Staff time logs, that's totally up to you. I know that there's a lot of staff that do not have to clock in. I do not make my staff clock in. This is not something we use, but Google Forms is time stamped. And for that reason, and this is something that we just started in January for my program, and something that we love so very much, you can use it for student attendance sheets. So what we've done and what I'm going to show you here, is we have created attendance sheets for every single class. The students sign in when they come in. They sign out when they leave. It is time stamped. We don't have to worry about anybody fudging that. If anything, they get less credit because they forgot to sign in. So it takes a little getting used to, but we have made it work. So I'm going to go over here to Google Forms really quickly because I want to definitely show you a couple of these things because I really, really, really love Google Forms. So I just go to forms.google.com and it will take you to your template gallery. And you can see at the top, there's all these different just generic templates that you can use. And then these are some of the forms that I've created. For example, this is my time off request. I'm going to show this to you here. So if a staff wants to create a request for leave, all they have to do is put in their name, their email, the type of leave, start and date, number of hours, and their reason. I did create a setting where I could be notified of these requests, and then I can approve them, and the approval will be sent directly to the staff member. Now, Google recently did an update, and I haven't been able to figure out how to work around that update, so I do have to have the staff follow up with me, let me know that they did a request for leave. But at least this allows me to document this because at the end of the year, I can see what leave has been requested. And that's very useful information for me. Another form that I want to show you is our end of term survey. So like I mentioned, this allows our students to give honest feedback. They can say what class they attend, and they rank things like class times, locations, the quality of instruction, what they really like about the program, what they think could be improved. And then they can leave any comments. This is very useful, again, to help us evaluate our program performance from the student's perspective. Now, another thing that we use forms for, and we have been doing this for a little over a year, is we're using forms for our student intake form. Every year we get that email from the state saying this is the information that we have to collect for our students. And so we have them put it into Google Forms. When they come in for registration, they fill this out. What's really great about this is that we don't have to worry about handwriting. We don't have to worry about them skipping over any required information because Google Forms will not let them. You can set it, if it has that asterisk there, that means that it is required. If I were to click here, I could see the details for this question, and you can choose whether or not to make it a required field. So they will not be able to skip over those things. And anything that needs to be signed, of course, we don't have on the intake form, but if it doesn't have to be signed, we can have that information there. And then it allows us to go back to that information. And again, this is very secure. Only 2 people have access to the results of this particular form, which is very good. The next one I want to show you, because I really do love this so much, is our attendance form. It is super simple. All I did was I created a different form for each class. Each form is a different color, and you can change the color palette up here on the left. You can change your theme colors. And the students get used to this. They know what color they're supposed to sign in on. They put their last name, their first name, they choose whether they're signing in or signing out. They submit it, they're done. And then when they leave, they do the same thing. So at the end of the week, our data tech will take the Google Sheet responses and sort them. That she exports them as an Excel spreadsheet, sorts them, and then is able to use a formula to round the total amount of time. And it just makes data entry so quick, so easy. And if you have questions about how to do that, it did take a little trial and error, but I am definitely happy to talk to you about that and how to use this attendance form for your data. And so all you need to do, and I'm just going to go over this really, really quickly, to create a new form, you can go to blank, you can pick one of these templates if you want, and you just title it, and then you start making questions. And your questions can be multiple choice, they can be short answer, they can be paragraph answers, you can have a checkbox or a drop down, you can upload files if you choose, you can have the linear scales like you saw on our end of term surveys. You can do multiple choice grids or checkbox grids and date and time. When you start typing in your question, Google Forms will kind of guess. It will try to determine what type of question it is. Usually it's right. If it's not, you can change the question type. And again, you can mark it as required or not. And you can get very complicated with forms. You can choose to go to a different section based on an answer, but that would be something for a much longer presentation just on Google Forms, where I can get into details about how you can make those very complicated and longer forms. But I just absolutely love Google Forms. It is so useful for me. It makes data entry and data collection so much more efficient. And so, because we are pretty much out of time, I just want to know, here's your exit ticket here. What is just one Google tool that you're excited to try? Just one.
So Jamie, while we're waiting for people to put in their responses to that exit ticket, we do have one question.
Absolutely.
Eva from SIPI wants to know how secure Google Forms are.
So Google Forms are just as secure as Docs and Sheets when you are using, and I have to stress this, when you are using G Suite for Education. G Suite for Education has a particular level of security through Google that regular Gmail does not. And you have access to G Suite for Education through NMDELT. So if you use your NMDELT account to create these forms, they are secure. It is very difficult to hack into these forms. Now, one thing I didn't show you is, and again, I am very willing to do trainings on how to use Google Forms. When you look at your responses, you can download your responses as a Google Sheet, and you can choose where that Google Sheet is located and who to share it with. If it is very secure and you want no one else to see it, you don't have to share it with anybody, and you could be the only one with that information. You can also download that sheet as an Excel spreadsheet, and you can just aggregate the data you need. Maybe you don't need all the data, which is really great. But yes, it is very secure.
Yeah, we love Google Forms. We use that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So Google Forms is, in answer to your question about what tools are you most excited to use, that's the one that came up in our response sheet.
Awesome. Great. Yes,
So-
I just love it. Like Kristen said, we love using Google Forms. Okay, so
Okay.
go ahead,
Sorry.
Kristen.
No, go ahead. Finish what you.
So we're just going to wrap this up. So I will hand it back over to Kristen to do our closing here.
All right, so thank you for joining us this afternoon at our third annual NMDELT conference and our Google Tools for Administrators webinar. Jamie, you did a great job, as usual.
Sorry about that, and then my presentation went wonky.
So if you haven't already signed in, please go to signin.nmdelt.org and fill out the attached form. Yes, it is a Google form, so that we can make sure we know who was here with us today. And just a couple of announcements I have. Don't forget about our monthly Tech Talks, our webinars. We have one coming up, our monthly ELA webinar with Monse and Dawn, and Jamie, our wonderful Jamie, will be moderating that. It will be on Wednesday, April 17th at 12:30. It's the third in our spring series for ELA webinars called Practice and Conclusion, Tech Strategies that Reinforce English Learning. So more of that tech tool stuff. We also have an adult ed tech talk. However, I don't have the information for that currently. If you want to find out more about either one of those, you can go to the NMDELT website at www.nmdelt.org. And you can also follow us. If you look on the screen right now, we've got lots of resources. You can follow us on Facebook. We have a blog that we keep pretty updated. We've got Instagram and Twitter. So if you use any of those wonderful tools, please follow us on there. We'd love to see you. And thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you all so much.